Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves. We're going to start with you, Mr. Lawrence C. Connolly.
Yeah, hi. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Okay, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and watchers at home?
Absolutely. I'm Lawrence C. Connolly. I am the writer of Minutemen Execute and Run, the book that will be coming out October 14th from Arc Manor. I've been writing fantasy, science fiction, and horror for about 45 years. Got my start in the magazines and worked my way up from there. I have a feature film out, Nightmare Cinema, which I co-wrote with a few other screenwriters. You can find it on Amazon Prime and also on Shudder. And I'm really excited. This is the very first book. The book that's coming out next, Minutemen Execute and Run. This is the book that first book I've written on somebody else's IP. And the IP, the intellectual property, was created by my brother, Christopher Connolly. And we're really excited to be able to tell you about this book tonight. Looking forward to talking about it.
Absolutely. And I realized that I did not put that secondary person in the title card. So I'm going to have to update that. And if it's not on there, Chris was part of this too, and it was my mistake. All right. So, Chris, can you introduce? Well, first off, do you prefer Chris or Christopher?
I go by Christopher, but I mean, certainly Chris is fine. Chris is fine.
If you prefer Christopher, we can go there. Call you anything but late for dinner, right?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Christopher, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Well, yes, I'm Christopher Connolly, and as Larry has said, that he is the writer. I created this story. I'm an illustrator, designer. I've had many years of marketing and design. I owned a marketing design firm, print firm, but many years in New York, and now I'm in LA. But the main thing is that I created this. The story is created from a graphic novel that I was putting together, and then I was bold enough to think I could write a novel. Larry got involved and saw what I was doing, and he jumped on, and it was a blessing for me because now we've got a true legitimate writer, and we've got the whole story and the concept coming through from my vision, and it's all come together beautifully.
Okay, so I'm going to guess, since both of you are creatives, that your parents must have fostered that if two brothers end up in creative fields like that.
To some extent, we were just talking before this podcast. Our mother was a bit of an artist, and she never really made a big deal about it, but she was really quite an amazing artist. And so she always encouraged us. Our dad was a businessman, an entrepreneur, and Chris got that from him. I didn't get that gene, but our dad really would have been happy if we'd all been businessmen. And our mother would have been happy if we'd all been artists. So I guess with Chris and me, they kind of got what they wanted, but not in the same person.
You win some, you lose some. All right. So before we dive too deeply into your nerd pedigree, we're going to start with the religion question. So are you two ready for this?
Yes.
All set.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly? You get to go first, Christopher.
I would have to say Star Wars.
Okay. What is it about Star Wars that speaks to you?
I think it's because, I think that film came out shortly after I moved to Manhattan, and a group of us went to see that. And as I've expressed to Larry several times, I did not grow up with the comic book or the fantasy films running through my veins. This is something that I'm doing basically because of the marketing and the storytelling of, I think, a great story. But the Star Wars is what I'm a very visual guy, and Star Wars, everything that they had about it when it first came out hit me pretty good. I was never really one to watch Star Trek. I can say that.
Okay. And what about you, Lawrence?
It's got to be Star Trek, right? I mean, I see. This is what makes us, such a great team, is that we are so different in so many ways, and yet we are the same in so many ways. It's kind of like, I'm Chris's alter ego in a way, or dark side. But yes, Star Trek, absolutely. I remember when Star Trek came on television. I was just a kid, and I couldn't believe that there was this terrific science fiction show on every week. And I just, lived for it for 2.5 seasons. I don't think they finished the third season. That's what I remember, or at least I didn't finish the third season. But then the films came out, and it all took on a life of its own. It seemed to be more serious than Star Wars. The science fiction seemed better grounded. Of course, a lot of the writers were the great science fiction writers, Harlan Ellison and so on. So I would definitely have to say that Star Trek was the one that fits into my wheelhouse.
Okay. All right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we have the iconic Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia. Christopher.
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Okay. Why do you...
Game of Thrones, I got into it late. There was someone I was seeing at the time was watching it, and I was ignoring it. But I'll tell you what, once you start watching, you couldn't look away. I thought it was really great. I thought it was really good.
Okay. What about you, Lawrence?
You ready for this?
Absolutely.
I started watching Game of Thrones. I couldn't get through the first episode.
Okay.
But I do like the books of George R.R. Martin, but I just didn't connect with the HBO series. Now, let's see. My choices are Game of Thrones, Narnia. There is a third one?
The Wheel of Time.
All right. So this is when I get to pick a fourth one, right?
Absolutely.
How about Marvin Peake's Gormenghast books? Now that's for me. Are you familiar with them?
I am not. Tell me a little bit about it.
Very gothic, very surreal, very strange. Mervyn Peake, he wrote 3 books in the trilogy. They're mainly his output, his literary output. He also illustrated them. They are these books about this labyrinthian castle that goes on, and it's dark, and it's brooding, and it's surreal, and it's wonderful. And I think we're overdue for a Gormenghast rediscovery. So that's my pick.
Okay, I will have to check that out. You made a compelling
As a matter
case.
of fact, if you go to my website, lawrenceconnolly.com or lawrenceconnolly.com, it all goes to the same place. All roads lead to Rome, right? If you go there, the most recent post that I have in my blog has some of the pictures that were created for the Gormenghast books. And I think, if the readers want to know, listeners want to know what I'm talking about, they can go there and take a look.
I'll have to throw that in the show notes. Okay. Now, one of the crying shames of getting older is growing up as we stop asking each other the important questions. So we are bringing that back thanks to our generous patrons. So, Christopher, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, my God. I don't even have a clue.
See, isn't this great? And I would say right off the top, I would say Triceratops. Well, see, this is the team. This is the creative team behind Minutemen. We are yin and yang.
My new theory, though, is that what's the is that the one with little arms? The Triceratops?
No, that's a Triceratops. That's a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Those little arms. We're missing the wings on that little bugger. That thing had wings, and those little arms are on the end of those wings. I don't see how they put that together the way they did.
Okay, now we're going to get the hate mail, and all the weirdos are going to come out to write letters.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay. We're here for it. That is an interesting. I don't think anyone's ever suggested that T-Rex had wings.
Well,
I mean, I see
wings,
where you're coming
get that
from.
thing off the ground.
I see where you're coming from. I mean, it
Those
does kind of make
arms.
sense.
Those weren't there. That's not where they go. They went on the end of something.
I mean, yeah, there are some dinosaurs that have 2 different dinosaurs with the wrong name because they messed it up.
Yeah.
when they were putting it together the first time. So I mean,
Okay, this is my theory. Maybe you heard it here first. I don't know how unique it is, but
yeah, okay, that's interesting. I'll have to noodle on that one later. All right, and because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it, Christopher?
I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm a 5-hour energy, maybe in a tea now and then.
5-hour energy, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Chris or Lawrence?
What do I like to drink?
Yeah.
In terms of coffee? All
or
right.
tea, whatever.
Upstairs in my house. We were recording this in my basement. I call it my screening room, but it's actually my basement. Upstairs, I have a high-end espresso cappuccino maker, and I grind my beans fresh. I put them in the cappuccino maker, and I brew up 2 shots, and I froth the milk, and I put cinnamon on it. And man, that is the best breakfast going. As a matter of fact, it's such a good breakfast, I have it for lunch too. And if I'm having a really good day, dinner. Why not?
Now, do you go the latte style or the cappuccino style? So
I go the cappuccino style. Definitely, I'm definitely a cappuccino man. If not cappuccino, it's espresso. Straight up.
Okay. Ever gotten behind any of the other flavors than cinnamon? If you like cappuccino,
No, as a matter of fact, I only use the cinnamon on special occasions. Usually it is simply the espresso and the steamed milk. And I don't put any sweetener or anything in there. But I will tell you this. I've got the wand, right? And this is a high-end machine. This makes really good froth. All right. So I'll steam the milk. And then after I steam it, I'll stick another wand in it to froth it up more. I know the way I like my cappuccino, and that's the way I make it.
Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so how did you guys both get into the nerdy kind of science fiction fantasy world? Was it something that your parents were into, or you found on your own?
No, not at all. I a couple of answers to that question. I don't know if any of your listeners were able to see the first run of 2001. When 2001 first came out, I was just a kid, and I went to the theater, and it was in a big Cinerama theater, that giant screen, 1 block long, 2 stories tall. And I'm sitting in the theater, and the lights go down, the music comes up. You know, we have the sun rising behind the moon, if I have this correctly, and then the earth is rising, and stretched across the screen, a whole city block long, Stanley Kubrick's name. All right. And you know what was right after that? I swear to God, it was Arthur C. Clarke's name. Now, you don't see it on any of the current editions of the movie. It's just Stanley Kubrick's name. But I swear, when I was a kid and I saw this movie, I saw Arthur C. Clarke, the writer, the science fiction writer, with his name 1 block long on this huge curved screen. And I remember thinking, yeah, that's what you do. You write science fiction and you get your name as big as that. And so when I started writing science fiction, that's why I kept my middle initial, Lawrence C. Connolly, kind of as an homage to Arthur C. Clarke. And but I didn't start writing right away. It was just one of those things I filed away and said, you know what, I'm going to do that someday. It wasn't until I went to a book signing, Joe Haldeman was giving it, and it was in the basement of a bookstore. And I figured I better show up early, since Joe Haldeman's there. He's a Nebula Award winner. He's a Hugo Award winner. I better show up early and get in line. Well, I got there, and, you know, sometimes it happens. Sometimes there are book signings and nobody shows up but one guy, and I was that one guy. And I sat down. Joe Haldeman signed a couple of books for me, and then we talked about writing. And he's really the one that, you know, gave me the incentive to start, because one thing he said to me is, you know, if you're interested in this, the science fiction magazines are hungry for good fiction. And I went home that night and I wrote my first story, and I sold it to Amazing Stories. I didn't sell it right away. It got about a half dozen rejections, but within a year it sold. And shortly after that, I had stories in Twilight Zone and Year's Best Horror, and I felt like I was off to the races. So, it's kind of a delayed experience between seeing Arthur C. Clarke's giant name on the screen and sitting in the basement with Joe Haldeman. But along the way, that's how I got my start writing science fiction.
How old were you when you sold that first story? Was that something you did when you were a young man?
Yes, and you're going to make me tell you exactly how long it was between seeing 2001 and writing my first story. It was a very long time. I was just a kid when I saw 2001. I was in my mid-20s when I sold
No,
my
no, no,
first
no.
story.
So how long? Like how long after you saw Joe Haldeman to when you got your story published?
Oh, it was within a year.
Oh, okay, that's impressive.
Yeah. And then after that, it seemed like everything I wrote, was being picked up. So it was, but those were good days. I mean, this was back in the early '80s, and I remember that the science fiction writers back there used to complain about the markets, and they used to say the magazines are dying. But for me, just getting started, there were sure plenty of magazines. Amazing, Analog, Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Asimov's, Galaxy. There were a lot of them out there, and there were plenty of places for me to submit my stuff, and the editors were kind enough to give personal rejections and tell me what I needed to do to the stories. And I never took a writing class or went for an MFA, but I feel that my writing school was submitting to the magazines back in the early '80s.
Okay. Okay, so what about you, Christopher? Like, how did you get into the creative side of the house?
Well, as far as I can remember, I mean, all my life, I've been what I say now an illustrator. I call myself a designer, but I was a huge fan of Frank Frazetta when I was younger. But the funny story is that Larry at one point came to me and said, "Chris, you should do comic books." And I thought that was the biggest slap in the face. Here's my older brother telling me that he'll write. And I was doing some amateur. I was writing myself. I was doing the things no one really knew I was doing. But here I am writing. And one day out of the blue, he comes to me and says, "Chris, you should do comic books." And I just thought that was my highbrow brother just slapping me down a notch. But later I came to understand, no, he's right. I always was drawing Frank Rosetta style. And as the years had gone by, me having a marketing and design firm for so many years, I realized a franchise project would be the thing to do. And okay, let's take it up a notch. Not a comic book. Yeah, sure. But maybe a graphic novel. Okay. That's where I found my way in. I thought, I'll go with the graphic novel lane and let's do it that way.
Yeah, these amazing illustrations that Chris did for the Minuteman concept. When he came up with the concept, he began drawing these pictures of these characters. And by the time I found out what he was working on, he had this huge dossier of illustrations and character sketches, really rich stuff. And I was at the Confluence Science Fiction Convention in Pittsburgh, and I was doing some panels, and Chris came over and met me one Saturday, at the Saturday of the convention. And we went down the street to a coffee place and sat at a bistro table, and he unpacked this folder for me. And I just looked at this wealth of information, and I said, I got to write this thing. This is brilliant. And so I've always been a fan of comics. And certainly when I did tell Chris he should write comics, it was because I was a fan of his work. But here, years after I suggested he write comics, he opened up this folder and showed me this great idea for a science fiction adventure. And I knew we were off to the races at that point. That was the beginning of the Minuteman project.
Okay. Is it like, obviously we're here to talk about the novel. Did you actually write the graphic novel and release that as well?
No, see, I was naive to think that I could do the pitch, which I did. I pitched. I was out in LA a few times, and before I moved there, and I had pitched the graphic novel. It was a complete storyboard and complete story. And here I thought I'd get a few minutes with people, but with some, great people. And I ended up having hours with them. And but everyone I've, sat before and talked about it, everyone loved the story. Everyone loved the project. But the last time we were in LA, before I got to leave, they wanted to sign with us, and so yeah, that's how that all came about. I just I was naive enough to think that you could just go straight from pitching this and go into a live action. So we've got some steps that we're doing now. We got the novel coming out. We're backing it up with other projects with this, and again, we're working our way to that live action film.
Yeah, and Chris is amazing in a pitch. And when he was pitching out in LA, the part of the story that Chris didn't tell you is that, and I think he alluded to it, but let's be clear, he did interest a couple of very high power producers in the Minuteman project. And it is only a series of unexpected incidents that kept that film from being made. And of course, the first one was COVID, because this was in 2019. This was in the fall of 2019 when we were out there doing those pitches. And so the project got delayed thanks to COVID. And then after that, it was the strikes, the writers and the actors strike. And after that, Chris has this amazing photo taken from the balcony of his apartment in West Hollywood of the fires that came within blocks of his home. So between COVID and the strikes and the fires, this project got kind of put on a back burner. And during that time, that's when I decided to write the novel, because initially what I saw this as would be a project where I would write the screenplay. And I did do a first draft of a screenplay. I wrote it on spec. But when all of these things came along and delayed the project, I figured I might as well do something. And that's when I wrote the novel. And Arc Manor picked it up. It's coming out in October. And here we go.
And the beauty about all those setbacks is it just allowed us to build this with more depth and keep layering it and getting it better. So everything's got a time, and so in a roundabout way, the delays, in my opinion, have been very helpful. And we've got a solid story now with an origin story that we know inside and out, and we know where we're going with this. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, if any of our listeners are interested in knowing more about the backstory, we do have a Minuteman newsletter, which is at concomentertainment.substack.com. And what we do is we talk about the origin of the story, how we came about developing the story, and where the story is going. Lots of behind the scene information, lots of Chris's pictures too, lots of drawings and in animated videos. I think your listeners will really dig it.
Okay, and if you're looking for it, dear listener, I will throw it up on the Amazon link, but this is a pre-order and it's launching in October. So if you do pre-order, it will go straight to your Kindle, or actually the pre-order right now is for print. It'll get mailed straight to your house when it launches. And then obviously closer to when they have the finished files they'll upload, you'll get the option to buy the ebook or I'm presumably Arc Manor's can do an audiobook.
Arc Manor, it is in the contract, but I haven't heard. And I would I'd like a shot at doing the audiobook myself. But I think we're going to be meeting with the publisher later this month, and I'm hoping that we're able to talk about that. But the short answer at this point, there is not one. No.
Now, is the book done because with the pre-order that long and you're doing final edits? Is that part of the holdup for the audiobook?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I do know that the book is done.
Okay.
And that's a hard release date, October 14th. That is set. It's good to go.
Well, since we are diving into the book, I don't want to hold up too long and then do a commercial and then come back. So we're just going to pause for a moment, dear listener, and shamelessly shill for the man. And then when we come back, we're going to do nonstop talk about this interesting book. So I'm going to roll that beautiful bean footage.
Van, I know this is hard for you to accept or even believe, but you're not imagining this. You're not going crazy. Your grandfather believed right down to the core of his being in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves.
You expect me to believe that my grandfather was a star-faring soldier?
I can prove it to you.
And how are you going to do that?
By taking you for a flight. Whenever you're ready, Van.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And I will say, when I grow up, boys and girls, my goal is to be selling enough copies that my publisher makes me a commercial that cool. All right, so with that out of the way, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So as we jump back into it, for those that are listening at home that potentially want to check this book out and want to know whether it's appropriate for their kids, what would you rate this this book, Minutemen?
PG-13.
Okay. Is it just the violence, given it's a superhero kind of adventure story that sets the PG-13?
There's some violence in it. There's a little bit of body horror in it, but nothing excessive. I think that PG-13 would be a pretty good rating for it. What do you think, Chris?
I agree.
Although, these days, I don't know. I mean, I sometimes see things PG-13, and they're certainly what used to be considered hard R back in the day. But I think that this fits solidly into the PG-13 category.
It's funny you should say that. I picked wanted to watch. I can't remember the name of it. It was a fantasy movie about Pompeii. And it said it was R, but I'm like, it's a 1980s R. We're good. And I hit start, and then it's like TNA everywhere. I'm like trying to cover the boy's eyes as you're like hitting the stop line. So it's hit or miss. Sometimes R means R back then, and sometimes R means like what we call PG these days. It's weird how that works.
Well, the music world's one that will really set you a new lane in that one too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So where did from here on out, like, you can both answer as you see fit to jump in, but where did the original genesis of the idea that was Minutemen come from?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, I don't know where you want to start the story, but I love that story about the Russian coach that you had in wrestling.
Many years ago, when I was training, there was a Russian coach that said to me, Chris, you have to train for recovery. You have to train. All the human athlete has in them is a 27-second burst. And I took that to heart. And so I always trained high endurance and recovery. Not that you are in a match or when you're competing, it's constant go, but there are times when you can kind of burst and coast a little bit as you're still going full throttle, it looks like, but you're still recovering while you're still taking, someone to the mat. So that 27-second burst is what the premise is based on. It's about having an ability to, by the way, a minute's a long time. And then I sat there watching action films and timing a fight scene or something like this. And of course, films, people get beat up. I think Bruce Willis it was so great when the Die Hard came out and he actually was getting hurt, stepping on glass and limping. I thought that was so cool. But, a minute is a long time. And then you add in the three characters that are working together, the four of them, I should say, and they are working off of each other. Take a minute, turn it into four. But it's all based on that training for 27-second bursts.
Yeah, the whole concept that the body only has so much power in it, and once that power is spent, you're spent. But as Chris was telling the story to me one time, that the people he was training with would complain. They would say, "We're tired. We can't go on." And the coach would say, "Well, if you have enough power to complain, you have enough power to go on. But you will know when you hit that place when you are all out of power, because you will collapse." And that is kind of at the center of the Minuteman story, because these characters in the Minutemen, they are able to channel every bit of energy that they have in their body into doing some remarkable feat, but they can only do it for a short period of time. And when they are done, they are completely incapacitated, completely helpless. So for these commandos to work, to function, they have got to function as a team. They can't go it alone, even though they have these incredible powers, because at one point, and this is why it's called the Minutemen, in about 60 seconds, they are going to be totally burned out, and they are going to need to be protected. So the other members of the team not only need to carry on the mission, but they need to protect that other person in the team that is completely spent, because going it alone is their kryptonite. Teamwork is the only option.
Okay. You're hitting on that old, if you've ever worked in a kitchen, you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean.
Oh, the cleaning man. That would be a good one too.
My wrestling coach in high school was a chef I was his regular job. He was not most of the high school coaches generally are teachers there. He was not. He came in to coach. And that was what he always referred to when he wanted to tell you were being lazy, is the cooking metaphors.
That's good.
So you were a wrestler too. You were a wrestler too, huh?
I did. I wrestled in high school. Wasn't quite good enough for college, but
Chris was such an accomplished wrestler. He could pin people in 60 seconds. They called him the Minuteman in high school.
Nice. I was not that good. I just was too stubborn to quit, even when I probably should have. So you got the idea from your awareness of body mechanics, and that is one of the flaws I see sometimes when people write action scene, is they don't understand kinesiology or the science of body motion. I've read so many books, even stuff that's like professionally put out there, where you can't use the excuse, oh, they were self-published, because I've seen that thrown out, where it's like the only way the body action works is if you can like literally detach your leg and then reach around and do whatever and then put it back on, because people kind of lose themselves in the motion. So it is nice to see authors that are kind of grounded in reality in that respect, because that'll pull you out of a story faster than anything. Now, did you use that experience in the wrestling side of the house when you were writing those fight scenes? Did you guys lean into that?
Well, Chris is the wrestler. I count on him to tell me everything that I need to know about wrestling. I am not a wrestler, but the fight scenes, I think, are very authentic and very accurate. As a matter of fact, the book does open with a long, sustained fight scene, and this is when we get to see the characters in action before we fully understand what they're doing. And I'm very happy with that opening section. But Chris didn't get back to me and say, people can't do this. So I think we're in good shape.
No,
it's always a good thing.
And since I'm not really the writer. I mean, I wrote this, but originally, but I had to write it based on what I knew.
Right.
Based on, I wrote one of the characters as me, but kind of elaborated a little bit. But then I started picking the other characters. I started picking actors, and because I had to write for something, I had to put someone in that. So that's how I started putting that together. And then, like I say, once Larry got involved, he polished it all up, really smoothed out the rough edges, and really ran with it.
Yeah, Chris talks about actors. That was one thing that I thought was really interesting in the portfolio that he produced, is that some of the sketches were definitely actors, recognizable actors that were in the roles. And so that was another way to help visualize the story, because not only were the sketches there to guide me, but knowing the actors and the way they moved was also a nice guide as well. And it also helped. I think it must have helped Chris when he was pitching the property initially out there in LA, and people were able to say, "Well, who do you imagine in this role?" And he had those answers right off the top. He knew them.
I had a whole file of the people that I had chosen, and and they started visualizing and seeing them in those parts. A few years have gone by, so we may have to start from scratch again. But yeah, I think it was very important. I'm a visual person. I needed to do it that way. That's the only way I could have done it, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that is the one thing. I like the concept, because that's the one thing most people get wrong, both in the physical side of the house, like just hand-to-hand type fighting, and combat in general, is it's always, generally speaking, pretty quickly. And so, but when you write these like long drawn out scenes, I mean, you could write paragraphs and paragraphs about the fight scene if you're covering a few seconds, and it works. But if you try to drag that fight out like they're going for hours, they're just exhaustion sets in. At that point, someone messes up and someone dies. So I like the idea that you factored in that. I don't think anyone's ever used like actual wrestling as the inspiration. There's a reason those rounds are 3 minutes and there's only three.
Yeah. But the other thing too is these characters each have their own true skills. I mean, they're coming from, as we were speaking before, they're just regular people, but and they've gone through some horrific things through war, but they come back, they're broken. I wrote it from a standpoint of the government doing a good thing and giving them their lives back. Well, we later learned there's more to that whole story too. But the thing about this is that they do have, like, for instance, the main character, Daniel Hayes. He's also, he's a veteran, but he's broken right at the moment. But when they heal him, he still has his, special ops capabilities. He was a wrestler, a collegiate wrestler, athlete. And so this is it. Each of these characters have their specialty as well that they can go to even before they activate their powers and lean on that.
That makes actual sense. And if you give someone the right pedigree, you don't end up creating a Marty Sue or Mary Sue or whatever you want to call it, because that skill set makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you rely on any other like skill sets? Like, obviously one of the guys is a wrestler. Were other martial arts streams to kind of mix up the capabilities? Is this told from one person's point of view or several? Like,
it's definitely. Yeah, definitely several points of view. I think that's one of the strengths of the novel, and one thing that I'm very pleased about. It came out really well. Now, let's go back to when Chris was laying out all this stuff on that bistro table at that coffee shop on that afternoon of that science fiction convention. What we're looking at this pile of pictures of one character. Chris mentioned Daniel Hayes, and then we have another set of pictures for another character, Dr. Christian Chase, and we have another set for Zoya Zinchenko, and so we have all these piles of character stuff on the table, and at that point it hit me. This has got to be an ensemble piece. This has got to be a multiple point of view novel, where the story is told from these various points of view. And so throughout the book, we are switching from one point of view of one of the major characters to the point of view of another major character. And a lot of times this happens right in mid-action. So we get to see the action from one character's point of view. It begins in one character's point of view. It is carried through in another character's point of view, and it is culminated in another character's point of view. And it turned out that this worked perfectly for the story. And it all began with those separate piles of character sketches that Chris laid out on the table that made it clear that, yep, this has to be multiple point of view. It has to be an ensemble piece.
Okay, so before you answer this, keep in mind we try to do spoilers free because obviously we want people to buy the book, read the book. But can you tell us a little bit about where these powers come from? You mentioned the government trying to do something nice, so presumably this was care after their injuries.
Yeah, this evolved. I think Chris will tell you about the beginning of this, and it evolved as we were working with it. But initially, Chris, you had some ideas about what the procedure was, right? What were those?
Well, in the beginning too, I spelled it all out in my original draft. And it is based on, it's not, I always tell people, it's not like a radioactive spider bites a kid and all of a sudden you're shooting spider webs. This is based on real science. This is based on what's going on right now. I mean, it's based on stem cell. It's based on nanotech, and cryogenics was the other third puzzle to the piece of the puzzle, I should say. And Larry corrected me at one point, telling me when I first read the first draft that he was coming through with, and telling me that we're staying real true to the story, Chris. Don't worry. But I didn't see that in there, and then he schooled me on that. It's you got to leave these little nuggets, these little seeds. We don't have to blatantly tell them what's going on. They'll figure this out. They'll understand it. So what happens is that it all came from a good place. The government was giving them these wounded warriors their lives back. They were healing them. They were giving them life again. Daniel Hayes is suddenly out of his wheelchair. I can tell you that. The others, their debilitation has been healed. But what happens is when their adrenaline is heightened, their body goes rogue. The treatment that they've gone through is in their body and it goes rogue, and this is where this side effect takes place.
Yeah, so the procedure that they go through, as I was explaining to Chris, is not something that has to be spelled out in a big expositional block, but we can, pepper throughout the novel details about the procedure that they have gone through and reveal certain aspects of that procedure when it becomes relevant to the plot, but reveal it by showing and not telling. And, kind of using the device that science fiction writer Joe Williams, I believe I have the name right, says or calls incluing, where you drop in these showing details that will allow the reader to formulate an understanding on their own. And so that's what I went with. And so the nanotech is still in there. The nanotech is still a very big part of how they are transformed. But it is there are no schematics or formulas in the novel. But there is the showing detail that lets us know how these formulations work.
And if you do it right, you'll have the doctors everywhere trying to figure it out. There's a whole channel of this like skeletal doctor who's trying to figure out whether you could actually make the Warhammer 40K or you could make like RoboCop or all these. He breaks it down from the science to try to figure it out because he's a nerd who also is a doctor and he just does it for the fun of it.
Yeah. And that was one of the benefits of the multiple point of view, because there are really only two point of view characters in the novel who know how everything works. In the other characters, they simply know that it works. And so for much of the novel, we are seeing it working. And occasionally, when we are in the heads of the point of view characters who know the formulas, who know the stuff, we get little glimpses into the mechanisms.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people know how to drive a car, but they don't know how a combustion engine works. It's kind of along the same principles in fiction, which is hard because I want to know how everything works, but I realize I'm the odd man out. So I throw in details that my editor constantly takes out. Like, no, they don't care about that, JR. So I'm with you, Chris. I feel your pain. You want to throw in all the cool details.
Yeah, but it's listen. I can look at a computer chip. I have no idea how this magic works. What we're doing?
Magic, of course. So is this okay? So obviously, this medical breakthrough happens, and they get these special powers. Is this something that the whole world is aware of? A la like Superman's out there and everyone knows he's there, or is this happening more in the shadows?
Happening more in the shadows. Definitely. That was part of the story from the beginning, wasn't it, Chris? Because the idea is, when Chris first pitched it to me, is that when these characters begin to realize their abilities, and they begin to realize that someone or some organization is very much interested in taking them over, using them, exploiting them. They decide they have to go rogue. They have to go undercover. But as the series develops, and we do hope it's going to be a series, as the series develops, the world is going to begin to know more and more as things go along.
Interesting thing too. At one point with the original, that Daniel Hayes, he didn't even want to try and figure out his side effects, what was going on. He doesn't quite understand. They're learning how to deal with a new reality as things unfold. So even he was in denial originally. He didn't really want to know too much anyway. He just knew he was walking, and that he was happy with that. Not only walking, but running, and feeling stronger than ever.
Okay. Now, did you do the cover art, Christopher?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that's a cover that Ark Manor commissioned from an artist, a graphic artist named Danny V. I know nothing about him except that he does this amazing cover.
We were very happy with
it. which is really amazing, and it is a scene from the book. Absolutely.
Now, are all of the powers of the various individuals tied to their skill set conversion, pre-surgery or whatever, or did some of them? Like, is this lady shooting what looks like electricity from her eyeballs?
She is the most over the top of all the characters, and she has the most complex power of them all. And so to answer your question, yes. When we first meet her in the book, the characters, people who see her, are struck by her stare, by her eyes. And it is certainly not because there is electricity shooting out of it, but there is something special about her eyes and something special about the way she looks at people and stares at people. And as a matter of fact, the way that she stares at one individual early in the novel is what leads to her disfigurement and traumatic experience that transforms her into this character that we see on the cover. So, and the same is true for the other characters. Each one of them in his or her pre-evolved state has a quality that becomes accentuated after the treatment.
And I can say this, right? I mean, we're not going to leave too much.
I don't know what you're going to say, but I trust you.
She was blinded. That was her injury. And that's the one thing about it. And so when they healed her, this is, yes. So their abilities are coming off of what their wound was.
That makes sense. If the treatment is curing the wound, then the wound would tie into whatever bonus comes. I just logically follow. That makes sense. Now, who is, without spoilers, is the protagonist of this series? Is it man versus man? Is it the world itself is against them? Like, who is the bad guy?
I'm glad you asked. I'm going to let Larry answer because I'm going to say too much.
We might give it away if I mean, is it man versus man? I would have to say that is one of the core questions at the center of the book. Is it man versus man? And readers will find out. Okay,
that's fair. We don't want to do spoilers because we encourage people to read the book. So I'll ask this instead. Would you consider that, given that these superheroes, they essentially become superheroes, right? They become overpowered with these special capabilities. Would you consider this to be themes of transhumanisms because they become more? Do you even touch those sort of philosophical undertones?
Absolutely. Transhumanism.
Okay. Was that intentional or just sort of an unintended consequence of the type of powers and the way you created the idea?
That's it. It's the extension of that.
Okay. Is this going to be, you mentioned that you were, obviously if the publisher picks up sequels, if this does well, is this going to be like a planned out arc, like a standard like trilogy type deal? Is this going to be episodic like some superhero fiction is?
Not episodic. No. We want to continue this storyline. That's something that always bugs me, not too much, but a little bit, about the the various universes, the DC universe and the Marvel universe. I love those movies, but there is the breaks in continuity that come between the reboots. I just wish the story would continue. I want to see the same arc continue to grow. And so we are really going to set out to try to follow the through line of the story, and not have any major gaps in the story, and try not to reinvent the novel series as it goes. But I better say this, because Chris and I also, there's always two sides of this. We are also very keen on creating multiple platforms of this story, where, so this is one stream of the story, the Minutemen novels, but we also have some ideas for a middle grade series, which would be different. It would follow a different story thread. Chris also has ideas for a graphic novel. He's also been talking about a gaming universe. So these would be parallel universes, but each universe, I think it would be cool if it just followed through. This happens, then this happens, so this must happen, and we continue to follow the consequences through to the end.
There's one discussion that we've had with our team is there's a possibility we would circle back and do origin stories, or possibly some spin-offs of just even a particular character. We'll see how things unfold, but we do know exactly where we're going with the, I guess you'd say, the arc.
Yeah.
Now, with the name like Minutemen, that obviously is evocative of American history. So is this set in America?
Captain America?
No. Is this set in the United States? Because Minutemen obviously references back to our founding.
Right.
But it also ties to their power limitations. So I was curious if the Americana angle was intentional.
Well, it's a globe-trotting adventure.
Okay.
We're in the States. We are in Mexico. We are in Central Africa. We are in Ukraine. It's really a globe-trotting adventure, but it really begins with Daniel Hayes, U.S. Marine. And we were talking earlier, Chris and I were talking earlier about how the Minutemen of history really do inform this novel, because these are ordinary people who are made extraordinary through their service. And so just as the Minutemen of old would be shopkeepers and ordinary people, but would pick up arms at a moment's notice and become heroes, that's kind of what happens to these characters. They are ordinary people who are transformed by situations into something more than what they were.
Now, given their military background, obviously they're used to uniforms in the form of like fatigues. Did you go the full superhero angle and let them have cool costumes, or did you stick to practical?
Oh, we've talked about that too. Chris, you want to answer that?
Well, let's see. No, we haven't. It's street clothes at this point, but again, goes back to the marketing. I think this is what you're referring to. Is there would be certain things items that they'd be wearing that become to be identified as the Minutemen. What were you thinking?
I was just thinking that in this first novel, they are not in uniforms. They are not superheroes. And that's why when you asked me initially, is this a superhero novel? No, it's a science fiction adventure. It's a thriller. It's got strains of military SF in it as well. It is, but no capes, no flying, no S's on the chest. But they do have certain bits of hardware, functional hardware, wearable computer
So
technology.
to help people visualize, would you say it's closer to thematically the $1 Million Man or was it $6 Million Woman or whatever those two franchises were than it is to say a Superman?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. Obviously there's when you say superhero, and that's because when you describe the power, it's where my mind goes. But obviously superhero, there's expectations of tropes and like through arcs that don't always translate to the rest of the larger science fiction community. So I like that distinction there. You're saying because from a plot point, it's probably more in keeping them than a standard Clancy action novel kind of thing.
Did you get the question, Chris? Could you repeat the question? I'm not sure I got that.
So with superheroes, there are expectations on plot arcs and tropes that are standard to the genre, much like romance wants the happily ever after or happily for now. Superhero have their own unique set of tropes. So I when the powers, they do kind of feel superhero-ish, you don't follow that trope pattern. You're sticking more into the action adventure expectations of the plot.
That's right. Action adventure thriller.
The thing we have is that Christian Chase wears the goggles, right? She's protecting her eyes and protecting us from her eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as a costume, but no, you are right. We were specifically avoiding superhero tropes in favor of a more something that's structured more like a thriller or a science fiction adventure.
Now, because my co-host is a comic book artist, I have talked with a lot of comic fans and comic artists. I will say it does sound like if you like comics and you like the superhero stuff, you'd probably still like this, even though it'll be thematically a little different.
This is definitely superhero adjacent. Yes.
Now, with the powers that they have, are all of the, like you obviously you said they go globetrotting. Are they all of the members of the initial group of Minutemen American?
No, it's this is one of the keys of the story is that they are. We were talking to my agent out in LA, and he gave us a phrase to describe the characters and what they are doing. He called the team a mosaic of power. They need to set aside their differences and form a mosaic of power. And that became one of our taglines for the novel. They are different and they all have different powers. They come from different walks of life. They come from different characters. They have different allegiances, different ambitions, but if they are going to survive, they must get past those things and find common ground so that they can use their powers collectively to make a difference. And so I'm glad you asked that question. Daniel Hayes, the main character, he's standing behind. That's Dr. Christian Chase in the foreground, and he's the fair-haired guy in the background. He is the American. But Jax, his family, he's on the other side. His family is from Mexico. We have Christian, who is in the foreground. She's from Central Africa. And we have Zoya Zinchenko. She's the most complex heritage. She is Asian, Russian, but she was raised in Ukraine. Okay.
So they get this procedure that gives them these powers. Do you address what happens if potentially they had offspring after the surgery? Is anything passed on? Are you creating genetic changes, or is it limited to them?
Well, we're going to find out. My sense is that let's find out. It doesn't happen in the first novel.
No.
Okay. So timeline-wise, is this set now? Is it set near future?
I would say it's set the day after tomorrow.
Okay. So that means you don't have to. You can step aside of all of the politics of the global wars and just future war with future bad guy. I like that.
Right.
Makes it more readable by everybody, I would imagine.
Right. Exactly.
Without being so polarizing. Now, some novels get very political. Other authors intentionally stay away from that because, people on both sides of whatever political divide there is like books. They like fiction. They like to escape. Would you say this book is pretty apolitical? It sounds like it.
Yes, I do go out of my way sometimes to say it's not a political story. It just is about war, and it's about the recovery from war and how these individuals move on with their lives.
So I will say that obviously if you've got government actors in a book, you've got politics. So I should be clear. I'm speaking of modern politics. If you make up fictional presidents and you badmouth them, nobody really cares. If you insert, actual persons, that's when people tend to get their back against the wall on either side. And I get it. So that's why I was asking.
Right.
And then, if it's too much of a clone stand-in, then people read into it. But like, I don't think anybody watched 24 and felt like that president in that series was anyone in particular.
Right.
And so nobody cared.
But the trauma from war is what this is about, and it's about the recovery, and it's about this group of people coming together from different, as Larry said, different nationalities and things, and working together, and also the banter that they have, their brotherhood, their sister, the camaraderie of they're all brothers and sisters of war.
Now, for the story itself, do you start after the surgery is in place and maybe a few flashbacks, or do you start before the surgery when they had their first injury? Like, where in the chronology of the story do you start the novel?
Well, we open in medias res. We open. They have their powers, and they are full throttle. They have learned to work as a team. They are still working out the kinks. They don't have it perfectly down, but they are able to walk into danger and function as maybe not a well-oiled machine. They're still screwing up because they're still learning how to work with each other, but they're doing a pretty good job of messing with the bad guys. And so we have this opening scene where we see them in action, and then after that opening scene, we go back and we see how they got there. And so I guess a little bit of both.
Okay. So based on our previous discussion with your nerd pedigrees on both sides of the creative divide, did you throw any Easter eggs for fans of some of that iconic science fiction properties like that you guys grew up fans of? Are you throwing any Easter eggs in there?
I think there are Easter eggs. Can I remember what they are? Yeah, they're you know what? Excellent question. Holy smokes! I just realized this. There's a reference to the Tribbles in Star Trek. Yeah, there is. I won't tell you where it is or how it's there, but there is a Tribble reference. Yeah.
And in the graphic novel, in the illustrations I've done, I did exactly that. There are things where you see dates and there's a purpose behind them. So yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's always a hard hard question for authors to answer, because a lot of times those Easter eggs are not intentionally. It's just their interest seeping through. So, all right. So one of the questions we like to ask our authors is, given that you are the creator of this universe and the giver of all the torment of all of your characters, if you met them in a dark alley, are you walking away? We'll start with you, Lawrence, because you are not the wrestler.
If I met them in a dark alley, would I walk away? No, I don't think so, because these are essentially good people. They are flawed. They are wounded. They're traumatized. They're learning how to use their powers, but they are essentially good people. Now, they can be pretty banged up sometimes. Their bodies don't recover instantly. Superman, bullets bounce off him and it's like nothing happened. But these people, they get shot, they get hurt, and it's going to take their body a little while to recover. So, it depends on what condition they were in when I met them. If they just come out of battle and they hadn't fully recovered and they're staggering a little bit and they're scarred and messed up, I might walk the other way. But you know what? I spent so much time, and I know Chris has spent so much time with these characters. I just love these guys. I feel like I know them. I feel like they're part of my life. If really, I think unless they were really banged up and looking dangerous, if I met them in a dark alley, I'd really want to go talk to them, because I would like to meet these guys. I like these characters.
Okay. What about you, Christopher?
Yeah, that's funny. I've spent so much time with this over the years, and getting to know these characters that I feel like I'm part of the team anyway. So I don't think I would walk away.
Okay. Would you guys live in a world that has this kind of power?
Well, there are powers that we haven't talked about in this novel.
Okay.
And they're very scary. And I don't want to give them away, but what the Minutemen are fighting against is a power that I really would rather not live around, but I think we're heading in that direction. I don't want to give anything away, but there's a really cool dark power at work in the background of this novel, and the Minutemen are going to figure it out as they go along. It's what drives the novel.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. Now, you did mention the graphic novel. Do you have any concrete plans for that, or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, I think the novel's coming out this October, and I would like the graphic novel to come out shortly after that, to be honest with you. I also would like to do some animation series, possibly the short reels and trailers on the platforms that we also go to all the time. There are also the young teen novel. I would hope we can get that rolling right after this comes out too, as we're also getting ready to put the next chapter together, next volume. I guess you'd say volume.
Yeah, the next novel in the series.
Yeah.
We have up at our newsletter at concommentertainment.substack.com. We have some artwork done by a guy named Jeffrey Harris. And it's really remarkable stuff. And he's worked with us a bit, and he actually has illustrated or graphic novelized one of the chapters of Minutemen. And it's available through our newsletter as an animated video. I think listeners would really enjoy it. It's very short. It's about 2 minutes long, but it'll really give you a sense of what we envision as potentially the look of that graphic novel.
It's a little nugget. It's a tease. It's a planting the seed of where we're going with that in that direction as well.
Okay. As we wrap this up, first, if they make the movie tomorrow and they film it and they're doing the set, are you guys asking for a cameo?
Are we asking for a cameo? I want to be a star. No, I don't think I'll ask for a cameo. No, Chris might. Chris is a wrestler.
I don't know. We want this thing to take off. We don't want me ruining it. Maybe later down the line we can pull the Stan Lee little thing, but or M. Night.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
I think Stan Lee. I guess that would be all right to have a little piece like that. But
we have another brother that can do that for us.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask for it.
There's the other approach is the Clive Cussler writes himself into every novel. Clive Cussler, if you've read any of his stuff, he's always like a bus driver or the car park attendant or whatever. But he's one little line where his name is mentioned on somebody's like name tag.
Yeah, I like to be pulling the strings and not doing the dance.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. All right, is there anything about the Minutemen concept in the first novel, Execute and Run, that we didn't talk about before we wrap this up that you really think listeners and viewers at home need to know about?
It comes out on October 14th, and if they'd like to know more, they can check out our newsletter. But we hope they'll pick up the book and come along for the ride. It's been an incredible adventure putting this together. And as Chris writes in the afterword to the book, he has an amazing afterword where he talks about the genesis of the Minutemen Project. As Chris says there, this is just the beginning. We've got so much planned, and we're hoping that the book is a terrific success so we can bring everything that we have in our minds and in our folders to fruition. So mark your dates, October 14th, Minutemen Day.
And I'll leave it at that and let Larry answer that because I am biting my tongue this whole interview. I give too much away.
So if like I noticed with we'll link to the book that's for sale now, but the pre-order right now is just for the paperback. I know a lot of times the specifications you need for an ebook, it's a lot of times they upload that at the last minute because conversion doesn't take that long. If we join your newsletter, are we going to get a reminder, hey, it's coming out? Because you can't obviously pre-order the ebook yet. But a lot of my readers, they read exclusively ebooks. Yeah,
there will be a reminder at the newsletter and at the website, minutemennovel.com. There's a great big countdown clock and a pre-order button that they can click. And yes, the ebook will be available on Amazon. The same date that the paperback print comes out.
Okay. And I will throw a link so we can get that because we have time to grab those links before this airs. All right. So if people wanted to track you down on the social medias, and we'll start with you, Lawrence, where might we find you?
The absolute best place to find me is my name, lawrenceconnolly.com or lawrenceconnolly.com. Goes to the same place. And once they get there, they will see links to Facebook, Instagram. They will see my blog, links to my video page. Everything is there. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everything that they need to track me down. But if they don't want to go to Lawrence Connolly, lawrenceconnolly.com, they can find me on Facebook, Lawrence C. Connolly, or they can find me on Instagram, where I am also Lawrence C. Connolly. The one place where they really won't find me is Lawrence C. Connolly on Substack, because I do have a Lawrence C. Connolly on Substack, but when people subscribe to it, I send them a note and say, what you want to do is sign up for ConCom Entertainment instead. So hope that answers the question. I think that my main domain is the best place to go to find me.
Okay. And what about you, Christopher? Where might we find you on the wild interwebs?
Well, I guess Facebook, Christopher Connolly. There's many of us, I guess, but Christopher Connolly. And then Instagram, Christopher Connolly 33.
Okay. And this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. It really does matter, especially with debut novel in a series, because it does help push the follow-on novels, and it is a good indicator to publishers that, hey, people really like this book. So it does help if you like a book and you want them to write more in it to do those reviews. It really does matter. And with that, you can find us, a dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitter. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. These episodes aren't free to produce, and we really appreciate that you help keep the lights on. And if you want to make sure that gets for the podcast, be sure to put that in the comment section. That is for the show. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their eyeballs, and then we'll swim away on a river of Java, people. And if you want some of that coffee brand coffee, link is in the show notes. Code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. They give us a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I'd like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, thanks for coming on, Lawrence. Christopher, this was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to hit the end button.